But first, breaking news at 6. President Trump says the U.S. military has launched strikes on ISIS targets in northwest Nigeria.
Nigeria airstrikes. Something doesn't add up. There has been numerous stories coming out of Nigeria about oil, and now this is terrorism. What is going on? Is it oil or terror? Jets dive in. Something took place a few years ago in Nigeria, and that is not to do with Boko Haram or any sort of terrorist. That has been going on for years. That has nothing to do with Nigeria's Christian community being unalived or Muslim community facing the same faith. That has been going on for years. But something bigger, something that threatens global stability when it comes to oil refinery. Yes, the Nigeria Dangote refinery isn't the world's biggest overall, but it's the world's largest single train refinery and Africa's biggest. And the plan is to generate a capacity, which is currently doing, of 650,000 barrels per day. But the aim is to extend it now to the world's biggest of 1.4 million barrels per day, which will make it the world's biggest by capacity. And some wonders, is Nigeria growing too fast, or who is Nigeria threatening?
And moving on to Nigeria now, Africa's biggest oil producer has taken a groundbreaking step. Nigeria has decided to ditch the US dollar and sell its crude and refined oil in the local currency, the naira. In a historic move, Nigeria has begun selling its crude oil to the Dangote refinery in the local currency. The Dangote refinery is Nigeria's first private oil refinery. As per reports, Nigerian government is supplying 385,000 barrels of crude oil daily to the refinery. In return, Dangote will provide gasoline and diesel to the domestic market, also paid for in naira. The government says that the move is expected to boost local refining and to reduce dependence on imported fuel through this initiative.
First Post reported a year ago that Nigeria government decided to sell crude to its local in the national currency, the naira, and ditch, in a sense, US dollar from purchasing oil. So it was a Nigerian crude from a Nigerian refining company to the Nigerian local. So what is the problem? Well, Nigeria government explains why.
Well, Nigeria's finance ministry says that from October the 1st, it will start using local currency to sell crude oil to its homegrown Dangote refinery. Now, the move should make it easier for the facility to operate. Since it started production in January, it's been struggling to secure enough crude to meet its 650,000 barrel per day capacity. That's despite Nigeria being the continent's top oil producer and the Dangote site being one of Africa's largest.
About a month or so ago, Nigeria has decided to stop selling oil in the local currency, naira. According to Reuters, it says Nigeria's Dangote refinery has suspended domestic sales of petroleum in local naira currency, citing unsustainability. And it quote, Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals has been selling petroleum products in excess of our naira crude allocations, and consequently we are unable to sustain PMS sales in Nigeria going forward. The question is, was Nigeria pressured to change its tactics by selling crude in local currency? To build such a massive refinery in Nigeria is a strategic move economically, because prior to that, Nigeria used to send its raw material to the country to be refined, and then it shipped back to Nigeria, where Nigeria will buy the refined product at an extortionate price, and therefore to be able to do it on home ground and refine it yourself, then Nigeria will reap the benefit of a cheaper oil end product. And therefore the refinery is benefiting Nigeria, because a few weeks ago Nigeria signed a massive multi-billion billion deal with India to supply them with crude oil. Again, Nigeria will be reaping the benefits of selling the refined product rather than buying the raw material, converted it abroad and bring it back to the country and paying extortionate prices for it. A massive deal Nigeria has just signed. And I'm sure a lot of players in the world will be upset and wondering what is the next move for Nigeria. And of course, Nigeria's got not only oil refinery envy and oil refinery scrutiny eyes on Nigeria itself, but also it's got its own internal terrorist atrocities that is harming particularly Christians and, I must say, Muslims worshippers. And therefore Nigeria was hitting back to the point where even the terrorists decided that, why can't take this no more, because we would like to negotiate and we would like to find some sort of common ground with all of the bombings that you're actually bombing us. So the terrorists reached out to the Nigerian government begging. It has been reported.
I need to send message to Commissioner of Defense Tukur Usman Gusau. He is the one of the send the aeroplane to come bush to bombing.
So Nigeria built one of the world's biggest refinery. They were doing good and they were selling in local currency. Recently they've decided to scrap that move and now they're selling back by presumably in US dollars. And then the bandits Nigeria were pummeling with hardcore bombings have decided to beg and ask for mercy. And here comes the surveillance. All of a sudden, the Americans decided that they need to surveil the areas where these ISIS groups supposedly are stationed, and America decided that they're going to root them out under the name of genocide towards Christianity.
Intel gathering flights over large parts of Nigeria since late November, and this is according to flight tracking data and current and former US officials who've been cited in Reuters reports. The news agency, however, could not determine what information the flights are meant to obtain. The flight is in West Africa follows US President Donald Trump's threats in the month of November to militarily intervene in Nigeria over what he says is its failure to stop violence targeting Christian communities.
Now, the surveillance started from Ghana straight over Nigeria, and US planes have been reported to have done a lot of surveillance missions, perhaps one would say searching out where terrorists are located in order to strike them, because they are causing a lot of atrocities to Christians, particularly to which Donald Trump is very concerned. But is he?
An urgent message from President Trump demanding Nigeria stop the brutal murders of thousands of Christians in the country or face possible action from the Pentagon. He posted in part, quote, "The USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria and may very well go into that now disgraced country guns a-blazing to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible atrocities."
Did you hear that Donald Trump has just called Nigeria a disgraced country? But what Donald Trump accused the country of, Nigerian's leader hit back because he wasn't happy with the statement that Donald Trump posted. Listen.
His president has said in response, he said that the characterization of Nigeria as religiously intolerant does not reflect our national reality, nor does it take into consideration the consistent and sincere efforts of the government to safeguard freedom of religion and beliefs for all Nigerians.
But first, breaking news at 6. President Trump says the U.S. military has launched strikes on ISIS targets in northwest Nigeria. The president confirmed the strikes on social media, saying he ordered the strikes because ISIS is killing Christians in the region.
Whilst Jet's Global View welcomes the United States intervention in unaliving those terrorists who are actually unaliving Christians and Muslims, but the narrative painted is not reflective of the facts. In fact, 83 churches were attacked by the group and 72 mosques. 2,000 Muslims were unalived and 1,500 Christians. So the narrative painted as if Christians were the ones that being persecuted is not a reflection of the fact, according to the scholar and human rights lawyer Bolama Bokati.
African nation claiming that ISIS had been targeting Christians in the region. The president writing in part this on social media about it: I have previously warned that these terrorists, that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, there would be hell to pay. And tonight, he goes on to say, the Department of War executed numerous perfect strikes, as only the United States is capable of doing. Now, Nigeria confirmed the two countries coordinated in this effort, in this strike. Their foreign minister joined CNN earlier this morning.
What took place yesterday clearly underscores the fact that Nigeria is not lacking in will and a commitment to the fight against terrorism.
The United States have been active in the last few months, targeting ships that it believes that are actually carrying drugs to the United States from Venezuela, and the Venezuela authority is involved in that, and the United States threatened strike. But further down, Donald Trump admits that there's been some deal that went bad a few years ago and they want their oil back. Now, Nigeria built one of the world's biggest refinery and was selling oil to its locals in the local currency, and recently decided that they're gonna scrap that. And now Nigeria, having had this sort of terrorism problem for many years, all of a sudden the United States decided that, well, I'm going to go after those that are affecting and unaliving Christians, even though the facts seems to suggest other groups, Muslim to be specific, have been unalived by the same group, and therefore there is no specific targeting, as the group is just targeting anyone. And the United States decided that we're going to go in, and then that begs the question, is it oil or terror? What is really the reason? And many people have argued that the United States does not launch any attack against any nations unless it benefits its interests. Therefore, timing is important. And that begs the question, where many people would say, is that why is the US launched airstrikes on ISIS in Nigeria? And the question is the whole thing about terrorism, or is there more to the story? Many people would say that oil would play a major role in the United States decision. And the question is, what is your view? Do you believe that the United States is just generous and concerns so much about Christians around the world that it decided to go into Nigeria in collaboration with the Nigeria's government and launch an attack on those terrorists? Or do you think that there is something sinister that is going on in the background, and whether oil may play a major part in the United States interests? Why not sound off in the comment section below, and let's have a debate about what you think is the real reason. So I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I shall see you on the other topic.